everybody. Bosco Sodi. So I'm just thrilled to have you here, Bosco, as part of Art News's ongoing conversation with some incredible artists, influencers, and people really just evolving every great aspect of our culture right now. So we love having you here. So let's dive right in, Bosco. Can you tell us when you knew you wanted to be an artist?
Well, it was since I was very young, because when I was young, I was diagnosed with a deficit of attention, hyperactivity, dyslexia. So my mother, she found these art classes that were kind of therapy. So she signed me in these classes that I was going 2 times a week, every week since I was 6 years old. And the only time that I feel settled and comfortable with myself and everything was when I was doing these classes. So I really enjoy going there, and that's when I realized that one of my escapes to feel home and settled was to do art. So I continue doing art through my whole youth, during my teenage years. And then when I got married, I went to live in Paris, and in Paris I had a small studio in the apartment, and I began to do this series of drawings of watercolors. And at the very end of my stay in Paris, I took the watercolors to a framer over there. And when I went to pick up the watercolors, the guy of the framing place, he told me, well, we have a guy that wants to buy all of them. So that's when I realized that I was also able to live from what I love the most, that was being an artist and being able to paint and use my hands. And
so the moral of the story is, if we make art at home, we should go take it to get framed and see what happens.
No, I don't think I have been very lucky on that sense, because I mean, on my career, a lot of things have come by chance, by accidents. So, but I mean, since I was very young, going back to your question, I realized that I wanted to be an artist, and it was when I was creating art, it was the time that I feel the most settled, the most disconnected, the most in connection with myself.
Yeah, so really almost a form of therapy for you.
Yeah, completely, yes.
How has, you are of Mexican descent, how has your heritage contributed to your work? And also, just a quick side note, when you lean forward, your computer it's way clearer. So whatever you're doing now, keep doing that. Okay. Were you inspired by your Mexican heritage? Does that contribute to your work today?
Well, it's not in a very conscious way. I mean, I'm a very proud Mexican, born and raised. But I think Mexico, it's a place of colors and textures. It's a place of craftsmen, of a very rich. I think that I'm not afraid of color, and I'm not afraid of texture, and doing things with the hands comes a lot from the Mexican history, no?
Yeah. Well, on that note, you are best known for your rich, textured, bold, large color canvases. So they feel very modern and at the same time very organic. Can you tell us how you developed this style and about your love of color?
Well, since I was very young, I love the artist expressionists like Rothko, like de Kooning, like Sam Francis. But at the same time, I love the materic paintings as Tapies, as Dubuffet. And if you know about these artists, the artist expressionists, they thought that color by itself, it was enough to express yourself. And on the contrary, the materic artists like Tapies or Dubuffet or the Catalan informalists, they were saying that the material by itself, it was enough to express and to give the energy. But I had a kind of problem because I love the color, but at the same time I love texture and the concept of materic work. I began to experiment at the beginning with sand or marble dust and trying to find my own language. And then one day I was living in Barcelona, and one day I went to Madrid to an exhibition of Braque in the Thyssen Museum. And my mother loves Braque, so I bought the catalog of the exhibition. And on the way back, I was reading it, and I saw that Braque, in order to give some texture to his works, he uses sawdust. And if you see the painting of Braque, the texture is very, very small. I mean, it doesn't have almost texture. So I say, well, why not to begin to experiment with sawdust and pigments, and I began to experiment at the beginning very, very timid in a way. I mean, I was not doing it with a big quantity of sawdust. But then one accident happened. One day I was at my studio. It was a Friday, and I have a bucket full of sawdust with pigment and glue and water, the composition that I do now normally for my paintings. And on purposely, I drop it on the floor. And during that weekend, I didn't went back to the studio. And when I came back to the studio on Monday, there was this chunk of material full of color, but full of cracks. And I fell in love with the effect that this accident caused. So I appropriate the accident and begin to experiment with it. And of course, with success and failure, until I got the formula to work with it. And I fell in love with this kind of material like the sawdust, because it's very organic and it changed a lot from depending on which tree the sawdust come from, the water, the temperature, the humidity. So that was the beginning, but I have always loved color. I believe in the power of color. I believe in the healing power of color, but also I believe in the healing power of matter, of the materic work. So I have always tried to mix them, and I really think that it's something that becomes like very special for the viewer to see the combination of the two of them.
Absolutely. I mean, this is so fantastic. I just put up one of these gorgeous works, which is untitled, and we'll get to that in a second. But the specific shades you use, the pigments, they're so rich and they feel incredibly specific. Is there any, I think I read somewhere that you go to great lengths to get these very specific pigments. Can you just talk a little bit about the color palette and maybe that mixing process? I love hearing about the sawdust. I'd love to hear about the color as well.
Well, the color, as in my process, I need a lot of pigment. I mean, we're talking that in a painting like the one you're showing, maybe I need 6 pounds or 7 pounds of pigment, and that's a painting that doesn't use so much material. So normally when I'm traveling, I try to go to places where I can source local pigments. In this case, the pigment you're showing, it's a pigment from Morocco that has a very interesting story, because I went to Marrakesh to follow in this pigment. I wanted to have this Marrakesh red. So I spent there 3 days and going to the market, asking to people. Finally, I find the place, and I had to convince the sellers to sell me so much, because they use it also for their textures, textiles. Sorry. Well, so finally I convinced them after 4 days, and I bought like 6 duffel bags of and I mean, it's a nice story just to see how is this my journey for the pigment. So I was living in Barcelona at that time. I went to the airport. I paid the extra luggage in the airport to bring back the pigment to Barcelona. I got into the plane. The plane was all beginning to move, and then the plane stops, and like 3 police cars come to the plane. They bring me down they come up to the plane. They bring me down from the plane. They take me to a very small space in the airport, like the police station in the airport, without air conditioning, very, very warm with a fan on the top. They begin to interrogate me, like say, well, what do you have in this bag? Say, it's pigment, it's red pigment. I just bought it and I'm an artist. Say, no. So they were thinking that I had a hashish on the bags.
Yeah.
So then he takes a knife and he's going to cut the luggage. And I said, don't cut that luggage, because if you cut it, the red pigment is going to fly all around and we're going to become completely red. I said, no. And then he cuts the bag and it's, and then with a fan, all the pigment fly away. So the next shot of this one is I'm getting into the plane, completely red, with 2 red policemen escorting me, and all the plane, of course, didn't know what the hell happening, why they have been waiting for 45 minutes there. But I mean, it's just an example, a nice example to tell you how to search for the pigments. I love to go to the source, find the source, try different pigments, because normally they have different pigments. So I have bought pigments in Morocco, in Mexico, of course, in Japan, in China, in India. So I always when I'm traveling, I'm trying to try to find local pigments, and if I like the pigments, I buy it in big quantities. I think the research part of my work is something very important for me. Also, something that I enjoy a lot, and this kind of searching, looking, experimenting, and then choosing what to use.
That is one of the best stories I've ever heard, and I almost can't believe you didn't name that painting something to do with that flight, or I don't know. It's incredible, and you can just see. I mean, it's such a rich, saturated, gorgeous hue. So it was worth it, I think. But wow, what a scare.
But also something interesting that I really believe in the power of color. And that thing, one thing happened also one time at my very beginnings. I was showing in Art Colón with a galleries from Barcelona. And then he told me, why do you put so much pigment? Because it will be the same if you paint it on top, no? If you use the raw sawdust, and then on the top you paint it, and say, no, it's not the same. I mean, the feeling is completely different. I mean, I believe that in our guts or in our stomach or in our heart, we can feel those things as humans.
Yes.
So we make a bet of money, and I put 2 paintings in Art Colón. At that time it was, I don't know, it was 2006 or 2007. I put 2 paintings. One painting was full of pigments, like the one you're showing, but the other painting was also it looked the same, but it was just painted on top. The bottom was just raw sawdust, and it was incredible how the people stopped like 10 to 1 or 10 to 2 on front of the one that was that the color was coming from the inside, from very deep inside. There was it had a very strong charge of color, and it was very interesting to see how people, without knowing, they can feel this kind of radiation or energy or waves of that the color has.
They responded to the depth of the color. Wow, exactly. That's incredible. Well, so as a foil to everything we just talked about, your new exhibit at Paul Kasman Gallery is a sea of palette cleansing white. So let's talk about, after all these years in color and traveling the world for these perfect pigments, what inspired you to do this new series of work in white?
Well, I have worked in white before, but the main purpose of this show, my career was, how can we say, launched in Barcelona. I begin to get known in Barcelona. And I'm very grateful with Spain, and very grateful with the Spanish artists like Tapies, like Miró, like, of course, Picasso, but also like the Altamira caves, Chillida. And I wanted to, in a way, in this show, to say thank you to Spain for all the push on my career and being so nice with me. So when I live in Barcelona, I used to go to Fundación Miró, in the Museum Miró, and there were these 3 paintings that I love the most, that I went to see them every month almost. There are 3 big canvases, just totally white with just a line, on the middle. And Miro says about those paintings that simplicity is the biggest achievement of liberty. And he made them when he was already very old. So I wanted to do an homage to Tapies and Miro and all the artists and people that influenced my work from Spain. So I wanted to do these completely white canvases with just a small, well, of course, with the cracking that characterizes my work, but also with a very print branches. I went to choose different branches in a house that we have upstate, and then I print the branches on the canvas. So they have this kind of simplicity, but also beauty and movement. They look like fossils, maybe fossils that you can find in a cave of Altamira or someplace like that.
So you're putting branches of trees that you found, you're up in upstate, on the canvas, and then you're painting on top of that?
No, on the contrary. I finish the painting totally white, like the normal way I do it, but then I print the branch. In a very physical way, I print the branch, like I hit the painting 2 or 3 times with one single branch, and I make this composition of ephemeral fossils of plants, in a way.
It's incredible. Well, hopefully, so this picture that I have up here is of the current exhibit at Paul Tasman Gallery. I'm very jealous of everyone in New York who gets to go see that in person right now. So on that note, I think I briefly touched on the fact that several of your works are not titled. Why is that? And are you looking to the viewer to fill in the blank, or why do you not title your works?
See, I want the viewer to fill that blank, but mostly I don't want to give any hint to the viewer. You know, I want the viewer to make his own judgment without any hint. Because if you put to a title like the white painting that we are seeing here, if you put a title like I don't know, snow day, people will say, yes, it looks like snow, or moon surface. They will say, yes, it looks like moon surface. And I don't want them to have a hint because I want them to be completely free on the reading of and interpretation of the work and the feeling that the work gives them. For me, that's very, very important. I don't think that the work is alive until somebody makes it his own reading and he search for his own feelings with the painting.
Yeah, it's almost like the title closes off the imagination. So
yeah, I think that's with any painting. With the artist, that's the point. I mean, when you put a title, it's very on what you're trying to express, or either very abstract. If you see the titles of my shows, normally they don't have to do anything with the paintings. No, like this one is for Spain. That it's just an homage. Sometimes I put record titles of different records, like "To Take the Long Way Home." That is a song from Supertramp for a show I did in Mexico. So I like to put titles that they don't have anything to do with the paintings, the title of the show, and then I always do the paintings on title. Just in a few cases that I have dedicated a painting to somebody, like a friend of my mother passed away last year, and I dedicated one painting and I put her name to the painting, but it doesn't have to do anything with the concept of the painting, of course.
Right. So I want to make sure the art news community who isn't as familiar with your work knows about some incredible things that you've done throughout your career. In 2017, you presented a work in Washington Square Park called Muro. And what you did was you began publicly constructing a wall out of 1,600 bricks that you imported from your studio in Oaxaca, Mexico. So you actually built this wall in public view, and then you let the public deconstruct the wall throughout the day. So what inspired this exhibit, and just talk about how did this come to be?
Well, I was in Mexico and I was doing this pavilion at Casa Wabi, the foundation that I have, that the name is Atlantes. So the Atlantes is composed of 64 cubes of 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, made of this kind of bricks that we use for the wall. And one day I was with the craftsmen that were helping me to do that pavilion, because we use like 200,000 bricks, so I need a lot of help from different craftsmen to do them. And a lot of them, they were talking about they were at one time of their life illegal immigrants, and the young ones, they were telling that they wanted to try to cross the border and as illegal immigrants. And then we were taking a beer. Normally, when we finish working, we take a beer or something like that. And then I saw that they stuck the bricks like a wall by chance, and because it was more practical before we take them to where the pavilion we were doing. So it was just when Trump came to power, and he was talking a lot about the wall. So I came with the idea to say, why don't we make a wall because he was always saying that the wall should be paid by Mexicans. And so I said, well, why don't we bring the bricks made by Mexicans with the four elements of Mexico, no? The Mexican soil, the Mexican fire, the Mexican wind, the Mexican water. We bring them all the way like the same way that the illegal immigrants go, no? Crossing it through the border. And we do this public art because what I like about Moore is that it has the three things. It was a public piece, but also it was a performance, but also it was a political work. So we built this wall very early in the morning. We leave it 4 hours in order that people can see it aesthetically, to go around and like a public sculpture. And then we invite the people that was passing by to take one brick. Each brick was signed. So if you're familiar with my philosophy, I believe in the uniqueness of the work. So I always try to do works that are completely different. Even each brick of that wall, all of them were burned in a rustic kiln. So each one had a different texture and color. And it had my signature. So it was a kind of an edition of my work. So I invited people to take one brick that was an edition of my work and become co-proprietaries of this piece, but also on being part of dismantle a wall, no, and show how walls are very easy to construct, but it's also very easy to deconstruct, no. On this case, I was talking much more about the border wall between Mexico and the United States. But then when I was during the day, I saw so many people that they were taking such a different approach to the wall, that some of them because of gender, some of them because of economical status. So it became for me a bigger thing. No, it was not just a wall for the border, but also just to show how walls, in any case, economically, genderly, race, they're very easy to build, but they're more easy to destroy. And when community gets together, it's very simple and easy to take out those walls, even if they're very big or they don't look that they're deconstructible at all.
It's incredible. It has so much symbolism and meaning that obviously is incredibly relevant right now. So thank you for explaining that. Really incredible, and so fantastic that people could take a piece of it with them who were there, lucky enough to be there.
It was a big surprise because after we finished building the wall, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I went to, it was around 12 o'clock, we went to a Mexican restaurant nearby, and we took a beer and have some lunch. And then when we came back, there were lines and lines and lines, like 6 blocks of lines of people that they wanted to have a brick and be part of this performance and be part. And that shows you the beauty of New York, no? How open and democratic and eager to participate in these kind of things. No? That was very nice.
Incredible. Bosco, you're getting a little fuzzy for some reason all of a sudden. I don't know if you could like maybe shift slightly. I don't want to take away from the interview. I just want to make sure for some reason you're getting very pixelated. I don't know why that's happening. But so you mentioned your foundation in Oaxaca called Casa Wabi. And I'd love to just tell the viewers a little bit more about this incredible foundation. which is really working to promote the exchange of ideas between artists internationally of different disciplines. How did you get involved, and tell us about it?
Well, first of all, I think that the artists that we are lucky enough to do well in our career, no, we should have a very strong social compromise. No, I think we're really lucky. We live from what we really love to do, and so I always thought that as soon as I was doing well, I would like to give a big part back of my work. And what the best people to give back was, of course, my fellow artists, but also my country, Mexico, Oaxaca. That it's a place that I love, and my grandparents come from Oaxaca. And in this place, in the coast of Oaxaca, that's where I grew up camping since I was 12 years old. So I decided to do this foundation that involved my fellow artists, the artists that are not so lucky, or even the ones that are lucky, they were invited there as a resident. We have 6 studios for 6 artists at a time. We mix all kind of artists of gender, of age, even not just painting or sculpture, also writers or dancers and the concept is for them to go. They have a studio if they want to work on their own work, but the main concept is to do a project with the local communities, to do an exchange of information and experiences with the local communities, and do a solid project with them. That's one of the main points of the foundation. We have already had around 700 artists in the 6 years that we have been working. They have done amazing projects with the community, but also we have a mobile library that goes to these 14 communities around us. These 14 communities, it's people with a very low income that they haven't had any contact with art before Casa Wabi, or very few contacts with art. And we have a mobile library that goes to all the communities. We have a mobile cinema that brings cinema with content to the communities. We have an exhibition space that we make a show a year with a well-known artist, with a consolidated artist like Yanis Kunelis, Hugo Rondinone, Sumi Kato, Michel Francois, and that show stays for a year, and the community comes and we show them the exhibition. Also, we show to the kids of the community the architecture. We have 4 or 5 different pavilions made by well-renowned architects from around the world. Oh. So the concept is I really believe that art, it's a tool to understand better the universe and that surrounds us, and to understand better ourselves and understand better the other human beings. So I wanted to give more tools to the people of the community to understand their own universe, themselves, to open their angle. What's the main point? I mean, what I think is that one has the obligation of living a much better world than the one we receive. And one way, when people is lucky and they have enough money and enough time and enough energy to do it, they should give back as much as possible.
It's really beautiful. The images are gorgeous. The cause is wonderful as well. So people who are listening and interested in more can follow at Casa Wabi on Instagram. We're running out of time. I want to talk about a few more things, because in addition to your exhibit taking place now at Paul Kasman Gallery, you've also got a parallel exhibit going on called Perfect Bodies at Pioneer Works in Brooklyn, which is an outdoor exhibit. And it's so beautiful. It's very different stylistically, featuring these very large scale clay spheres, which maybe you can explain a little bit the significance of those spheres and what story you're trying to tell with this.
I mean, these spheres I made by hand in the studio of Casa Wabi. They're made with clay with the area, and they're solid spheres. I mean, I believe a lot in the energy of clay. I mean, clay it's a material that has been with humans since the very beginning of the civilizations. It has been a companion in our evolution, and I really believe in the healing power of clay, and we wanted to bring this first, as we knew that the show at Casmin was not going to be able so many people to see it because of COVID. I wanted to do something on open space, something that people can walk around and also feel the art and reconnect and I mean, like, retouch base after all this terrible pandemic. I wanted to find something to do, some kind of way of showing them. And Dakin Hart, the curator of the Noguchi Museum, the head curator, he came with the idea of putting this very close to my home in Red Hook. There was this very industrial parking lot, parking space, as you can see. So it was also very nice to contextualize these clays first, that they come from a tropical place like Puerto Escondido, and they have been to bring them here to a very rough industrial place and take them out of context. And also, I mean, it's a beautiful show to see because it changed completely with the light, the shadows of the clay balls, as you can see them change. And when it rains, it's completely another feeling. When we have a snow, hope at the end of the winter, they will change. So I wanted to make this kind of a universe of clay balls that people can walk around and feel them.
That's interesting. So you'll keep this exhibit going throughout how long? It'll go through the winter, and you'll let them get, you know,
I think until the end of December.
Wow. Wow. So that really gives people an opportunity to get down to Brooklyn and see the exhibit.
It's open to the public. It's really nice to walk around. They really give a very special feeling. I think they help us to reconnect with ourselves and with nature.
Fantastic. Before we close, I think everyone would love to know what is next for you, Bosco, both personally and professionally.
Well, personally, I'm in my studio working. I mean, it has been since the beginning of the pandemic. I was not able to work here in the studio in New York because when the pandemic came, I went to Casa Wabi to spend the quarantine. And I was able to work there on the clay balls and the pieces that you can see at Casmin. Also, my work and art in general, but I hadn't been able to work at my studio in New York, so I was really busy to begin to paint again and be able to experiment and to try to find a new idea to do a new series of paintings. So the next few months I want to stay here in New York and just being in the studio. And then for projects, well, I have a show in Brazil with my gallery in Brazil next year with Luciana Brito. Then I have one show with the University of Tampa, one solo show at the Museum of the University of Tampa next year. We have to fix the date because of the pandemic. We have been rescheduling, and also I'm going to have a show with my gallery in Belgium. I'm having now a show in the Contemporary Art Museum of Malaga, the CAC Malaga. That these are these very black painting with the total black painting, and we're going to show them at my gallery in Belgium with Axel Verbot in September. So there are plenty of projects coming. The thing is, I need to begin to work.
Well, Bosco, we've loved having you. Yes, we had a couple tech issues, but it was wonderful to hear from you and learn about all of these, both your exhibits, your past work, and your incredible career. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you so much for the interview. I'm sorry about the technical.
Yeah, I don't know what. It's just, you know, it just is what it is. We did have a tech run through, but you sometimes don't know what's going to happen. But thank you, Bosco. You've been a delight, and we will be back in touch with you shortly.
Thank you, Brooke.